What is up, my friend? Welcome back to the Wealthy Coach Podcast. I am your host, Kendra Perry. Excited as always to hang out with you today. And today, talking about pivoting. People like to pivot a lot. And hey, I'm talking to myself too. I have pivoted my niche twice and then I switched industries entirely. So I started out as a functional health coach, and my first niche was helping women in their 30s with female hormone imbalance. And then a few years later, I switched to helping active women in their 30s with fatigue. And then in 2019, I actually switched over to business coaching and helping health and wellness coaches build their online business. So I have pivoted, but there is a point where pivoting can become a little bit toxic. Okay. Sometimes it's necessary, it's brilliant, we want to do it, but sometimes we do it too much and it ends up hurting our business, our confidence, momentum, and our bank account. Okay. So, what I want to cover in this episode is how to know if your business actually needs a pivot, right? Why constantly pivoting could actually be holding you back, and a few real stories and hard truths about sticking with it and staying the course. Because really, that's the best business advice I could give you. And it is not fucking sexy. All right. So let's talk a little bit about how to know if your business needs a pivot. Okay. So not all struggles in your business mean that you need to pivot, right? There are certain things and struggles in a business that are actually really necessary. Like a business and building one is not smooth, it's not linear, it's really fucking hard. This is why most people don't do it and why a lot of people don't actually succeed in business because it is not easy, right? It requires this stick through itness that most people don't have because most of us just want to see instant success, right? Or people get really tripped up when nobody's patting them on the back and saying, "Good job." You are the only person who can say good job, right? And so sometimes the stickiness, the friction, the resistance that you feel in your business doesn't mean you need to pivot. It just means you're building a business, it's fucking hard, and you need to stay the course. Okay. So it's very unlikely, like if we're speaking to group coaching programs, and if you're, a new HCA student or you're thinking about HCA, you want to build this group coaching program, we will get your group program launched. We will likely enroll 5+ people into it for the first round, but you're probably not going to be rocking it, generating six figures from your group coaching program within just a year or so. Okay. It's going to take time to build it. There's going to be a lot of pitfalls and setbacks along the way. There's going to be a lot of points where you're like, this isn't working, right? Or like, why isn't this selling? Okay. I have a lot of entrepreneurial friends, and I have friends who used to sell their programs like hotcakes, and now they're finding it quite difficult, right? And does that mean they need to pivot, or does it mean they just need to stick out this sort of like economic, kind of space that we're in right now where selling is a little bit harder? Okay. You are going to have setbacks in your programs. You're going to have unhappy customers. It's normal. You're going to have refund requests. You're going to have failed launches, even 10 years into your business. Okay. So I've talked a little bit about, I believe it was July 2023. So, I've been running HCA since 2020. Most of my launches have been fairly successful. And in July 2023, I had a bunch of technical issues, and time of year, summer is not the greatest time to sell. And I did generate sales, but I really didn't generate much considering it was like maybe like, a fifth of what I normally would sell. Okay. I would consider that generally a failed launch, but again, we can learn from our failures, right? I actually learned some very valuable lessons from that launch, but I wasn't very happy with the results, right? And I could have said, oh, this means I need to pivot. I need to switch things up. Instead, I just chalked it up as like a crappy launch. Then a few months later, in September of 2023, I had my best launch yet. I think I generated around 70 grand. Up until that point, that had been my most successful launch. Okay. This was July 2023. I started my business in 2014. I started business coaching in 2019. Okay. So this is like 4 years into my business. Fast forward to this year. Okay. I did a workshop in early November or mid-November, I believe, and the workshop was very successful. We had over 100 people on live. It was very engaged. People were pumped. Like the energy was good. I was like, wow, I really crushed that. Didn't really make that many sales. Again, we enrolled maybe 5 or 6 people. Love those people, super grateful, like amazing. But normally I would have enrolled like 10 to 15 people, right? But fast forward a few weeks later, we had our biggest Black Friday sale yet. Okay. So my point is there's ups and downs, right? And just because something went badly doesn't mean it means anything. We love to make things mean things when sometimes it's just a failed launch. It's just a crappy launch, right? That November launch was probably likely due to the fact that it was very close to Black Friday. Maybe my audience was waiting to see if I would discount the program for Black Friday, which I never discount HCA. But maybe they were waiting for that. Maybe they were just getting inundated with all the ads and all the promotions because Black Friday is a lot of businesses' biggest time of year, right? It's a really busy time in the online space. It was also like maybe a few days or a week after the US election, which I think a lot of people weren't very happy with the results. And a lot of people were kind of in a funk over that. And maybe people were just like avoiding social media and were just like, fuck it, I don't want to deal with anything online right now, right? There's so many things that could have gone into it that actually didn't reflect at all on me or my business. And in the end, I actually do consider that workshop very successful because even though a lot of people didn't buy, they still got a ton of value and it really doubles as this amazing touch point. I spent quite a bit on ads, right? We ran a lot of traffic to that workshop. And so a lot of those people were meeting me for the first time and probably weren't ready to buy, obviously, no problem with that. But the first interaction with me was hopefully really positive, and hopefully that made them want to stick around and continue to interact with my content, right? Maybe they'll buy in my January launch. Maybe they'll buy next year. Maybe they'll just hang around and support me for the next few years. And that's pretty cool too, right? So a lot of times, like I said, we want to make something mean something. Oh, this means this. And, an example, I had a friend who, was used to having six-figure launches. And then she had a launch where I think she generated, maybe 40,000. I can't remember the exact number. And she was like, oh, this is the death of the online course industry. Like, it's not what it used to. It's over. The glory days are over. And I'm like, maybe it was just a shitty launch. Like, fuck, it happens. It doesn't always need to mean something about the world, about your business, about your industry. I mean, in the end, we should always learn, right? We should always learn from things that don't go our way. And as long as we're learning, it's not really a failure, right? So, anyways, my point is your business might not need a pivot. It might just be feeling challenging, which is really just the growing pains of any business, especially in the beginning, but really throughout a business. It's never really smooth, easy sailing. I've definitely had moments of it feeling really smooth and easy sailing, but then it's like something crashes and I'm like, friction again, right? It's normal. Okay. So, questions to ask yourself before pivoting. Is there a market for my audience? So, if people are buying, even just a little, there's demand. Okay. And if people are buying, but maybe just not the amount you want to, we can look at traffic. Maybe you don't have enough leads. This is a big one. Most people totally discount how many leads they need to make a program successful. Or the second question to ask yourself, this is really important, is my messaging clear, right? Unclear messaging is so common. And sometimes just a few shifts in messaging makes all the difference because messaging is just your communication. And if your communication is poor around what you're trying to sell, then people won't get it. They won't understand why your program can help them and why it's a better option than something else out there, right? This is something we focus on really heavily inside HCA. And I think my students probably get pretty annoyed with me because I really push them to be more specific, to learn more about their audience. And sometimes they're like, well, I just don't know that. Okay, cool. Make some assumptions now and come back to this once you speak to more people. Okay. Now, the third question to ask yourself is, have I put in enough effort or enough reps, right? So if you haven't launched a program at least like 5 or 6 times, you probably haven't given it a fair shot. Okay. And if you haven't had a coach review your launch and everything that went into your launch, then again, like your your product and program might be fine. There just might need to be some tweaks. An example. So I've talked a lot about the first launch that I ever did and how I thought I was going to generate $15,000 and I generated 1,500, and I was so upset and it was like this failed launch. But this is the problem. I didn't understand conversion. Actually, when you look at the number of people who signed up for my webinar and who bought, the conversion wasn't terrible. Wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible. So if I had known this at the time, if I had just stuck with that program and worked on making the webinar better, working on making the program better, working on messaging better, and like having a coach actually walk me through that, I bet you I would have made that program successful. But I launched it a few times and I was like, this isn't working. And I gave up. Right. And then finally, this is really important. Okay. So I want you to sit with this one. If you're kind of feeling like the urge to pivot, ask yourself this and really sit with it. Am I pivoting because it's not working? Or am I pivoting because it feels hard? A lot of pivots happen because of impatience. Okay. Because of impatience. Now, I've pivoted. Both my pivots, I've done two major pivots. They were correct for me. Okay. So the first pivot was from working with female hormone imbalance to working with fatigue. And the reason why I decided to work with female hormone imbalance is because hormones were discussed quite frequently in the program that I did. And it felt like a hot topic. Right. But I never really struggled with hormone imbalance. Right. So it just in the end didn't feel authentic because I was like, I don't really know a lot about this problem because I haven't gone through it. And what I was struggling with was fatigue, was chronic fatigue. So I really wanted to pivot and niche in something that I actually knew personally. And it really helped my sales, it helped my messaging, it helped everything because now I could actually intimately speak to the problem. So that was the right pivot for me. Right? Because it was feeling really inauthentic. That I was speaking about my struggle with hormones when, I'd had like, some PMS issues, but like really no major hormonal issues. Okay. Now, the second pivot I did was switching from health coaching to business coaching. And again, this was the right pivot because I was just feeling every time I did business coaching, I was so excited. I was lit up. Loved it. I had so much fun. And when I was doing health coaching, I just wasn't feeling the same. I was still enjoying it, but it just wasn't the same excitement. And I'll never forget, there was this woman who I'd been following for quite a while, and she started out as a health coach and ended up transitioning into business coaching. And when she did that, I remember I felt so fucking jealous. I was like, it was so jealous. And I really had to step back and say, like, why am I feeling this way? And it was interesting because I was like, oh, well, she did it. I can't do it now, which is ridiculous. And then finally, I accepted that I could also do that. And when I made the pivot, it felt so much better. But that was 2019, and I have not pivoted since. I made slight pivots. I wouldn't even say pivots, just like slight shifts in direction. But essentially, I've been doing the same thing since 2019. Okay. I've had Health Coach Accelerator since 2020. I've had HTMA Expert since 2019. Okay. So if we are constantly pivoting, this can actually ruin our chances of success, right? Because every time you pivot, you do set yourself back. Now, I don't like to say that you go back to square one because you don't, right? Like when I switched from health coaching to business coaching, I actually didn't see a dip in my income because I was able to take everything I learned from building the health coaching business and utilize it towards building the business coaching business, right? So you will have learned things that you can bring over to the next thing, right? But you are going back, especially if you're newer, right? Because you lose momentum. So pivoting can hurt your business because you may never give your program enough time to grow or gain traction. And again, it takes time. I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience with my programs in just a moment here, but it does take time. Okay. And if you are constantly switching ideas, it actually will make you lose trust with your audience, right? Or they'll question your seriousness. There's certain people who I follow, who I started following for one thing, and then I check out their account again. I'm like, oh, they're doing something totally different. And like, that's fine, whatever. But then I go back again a few months later. I'm like, what are they doing? And then I just get confused. And then I don't take them seriously because I'm like, what is this person actually doing? Like, I'm so freaking confused. Like, it should be really clear what you're doing, who you help, and how to work with you. But when you constantly switch, people just don't think you're serious and they lose trust in you. Okay. And then it also results in a lack of consistency, right? So success requires showing up, marketing, selling, and offering your offer every single day. The consistency is key. It's not sexy, but it is what makes a business work, is the stick to itness, right? And so even if after 2 years you've been running your business, your program, and you're like, oh, I'm just not getting the results I want, unless it feels so out of alignment that you're having a visceral response, I don't recommend pivoting. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about my programs. Okay. So I have two group coaching programs. I have HTMA Expert, which teaches health professionals and practitioners how to interpret and utilize hair tissue mineral analysis. I started running that program. The first round, I believe, was in March of 2019. Health Coach Accelerator, first round, I believe, was October of 2020. Okay. So HTMA Expert, we are going on, what is that? 5 years, 6 years, and HCA. Yeah. So 6 years with HTMA Expert, 5 years with HCA, or 4 years with HCA. I can't do math. It's 4+ years for both programs. Okay. Now, the first 2 years running that program, it felt slow and it felt hard. And I sort of felt like I was banging my head against the wall. Okay. The first version of HTMA Expert sold really well. So did the second version, but then I struggled to figure out how to sell it beyond that. And I was getting kind of sales trickling in every month, but like the program was very kind of stagnant. There wasn't a lot happening. And the growth was incredibly slow. And I honestly thought about scrapping that program so many times. Okay. Same thing with HCA. The first program did quite well, but every launch never grew. I was always kind of, making the same amount of money, selling the same amount of spots. And that went on for about, 2 years, 2.5 years. And again, banging my head against the wall, thinking like, do I need to do an entirely different program? Should I 100% switch course? Like what's going on here? And yeah, I wanted to pivot. I wanted to pivot, but I really decided to stick with it. Okay. And the turning point was really refining my messaging and figuring out what was the proprietary method that I taught inside HC and what was the main thing that we did. I also tested multiple launch strategies. I ran a ton of people through the funnels. And now I am well known for these programs. I am known for HTMA Expert. We get tons of referrals. We get tons of people, telling their friends about it, right? I am now known for that program. And I am also known for Health Coach Accelerator, right? Because over time, people start talking about your program, right? More people go through it. They refer their friends, right? And the program will start to grow. And I've really only hit my sweet spot with both of these programs literally in the last 2 years. Okay. So finally, at the end of, or I guess early 2023, I found a funnel for HTMA Expert that worked like gangbusters. Um, and it greatly increased my revenue. Right. And then finally, in the end of 2023, that September 2023 launch, where I decided to not do my webinar and actually break up my webinar into a 3-day challenge, that really resonated with my audience. And that's when I had my biggest launch ever. And then the next launch was almost a 6-figure launch. Okay. So I was speaking with my friend Shanae the other day. She's actually the life coach and NLP practitioner that works with my students inside Health Coach Accelerator. And she was like, I can't believe how well you're doing with both your programs. It's so inspiring. It's so amazing. And she's like, what's your secret? And I was like, honestly, this is like my 5th year going into one program, the 4th year going into the other program. Really, my secret is just sticking with it. That's it. It's not that sexy. I've tried a ton of things. I've failed a lot. I've learned a lot. I've done a lot of things that didn't work. And it's just taken me that long to establish these programs, get known for these programs, and find funnels that work for both programs. And funny enough, each program has a very different sales strategy, right? HCA, we sell through basically only through live launches at this point. That works well. And then with HTMA Expert, I only sell it through Evergreen, like completely different. Like it's all automated, like polar opposites, but it works for each program. Okay. So the lesson is, okay, that success takes time, right? Programs need time to become known, to build credibility, and to develop that referral network. Okay. And this brings me to the final point, which is really the power of commitment in online business, right? Success comes from commitment to your program, to your audience, to yourself, right? And remember, commitment doesn't mean no adjustments. It means a lot of optimization. It means tweaks along the way, but you do want to stay focused on one core offer. And sometimes it's going to feel boring. It's not always going to feel exciting. It will feel monotonous. Monotonous. I can't say that word. You know what I mean? It'll feel like you're banging your head against the wall sometimes, but it will work if you commit to it over time with those adjustments, right? We don't want to just commit to something that doesn't work and keep doing the same thing. We always want to be learning, improving, making things better. But it builds trust with your audience, right? Like, you know what you're getting from me. If you come to my Instagram, I'm sharing group program related content and I'm selling you HCA. And I've been doing that for over 4 years. Okay. So it builds trust with your audience. It establishes you as the go to expert. And again, it provides the foundation for those big wins over time, right? Because truthfully, overnight success, yes, it happens to the odd person, but for most people, it is a long, slow process. And sometimes it feels like you were literally walking through mud. Okay. So the key takeaway is that pivoting isn't always the answer. Okay. Stick with your program, keep showing up, keep refining. Success will come when you stay committed, even when it feels hard and even when it feels like you're not moving forward. Okay. All right, my friend. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Wealthy Coach Podcast. I will see you next Monday, same time, same place, where I help you become wealthy AF.